The holographic war map floated above the table, an elegant weave of blue defense lines and crimson enemy arcs. Every alien in the room leaned forward, until the human at the far end raised a hand. "That's not a shield," Elias Vance said, voice cutting through the alien chatter. He pointed at the massive silver arc guarding the war map hovered over the table like a slow-turning storm. Virellia in soft blues, thread vectors in hard red, the Zarkethi mothership a jagged black sun with a silver band around its waist. Voices layered, clicks, trills, bass rumbles, a dozen species agreeing with themselves. Commander Elias Vance had been invited to observe. The word mattered. Observers didn't interrupt. He raised his hand anyway. "That's not a shield," he said, pointing at the glittering band. "That's a weak spot." Everything stopped. Even the hologram seemed to hold its breath. The Brivkin admiral at the dais half-turned, triple eyelids narrowing. "Human," he said, carefully neutral. "Our analysis is conclusive. The midline array resists both energy and kinetic assault. We focus here." He highlighted spines on the mothership's back. "Where their armor is thinner." Elias kept his voice level. "You're reading a controlled emission and calling it a barrier. If you strip the smoothing from your spectrographs, you'll see periodic venting. It's thermal regulation, not deflection." A Saren tactician hissed through gill slits. "We have modeled this. Your claim is, what is your phrase, a leap? Pattern recognition," Elias said. "Ours works even when your models are wrong." The presiding marshal, Vraken of the Crawl, massive and stone-scaled, lifted one claw. The room settled. "Commander Vance, you challenge a consensus built on 2 cycles of combat data." "I'm challenging a comfort," Elias said. He tapped the hologram. The midline band expanded. The silver wasn't uniform up close. It pulsed, faintly, at uneven intervals. "Look at the phase offsets. They're compensating for internal temperature spikes. You don't build a shield that flutters. You build an exhaust that breathes." Murmurs. Disbelief was a polite word for it. Humans were new, useful skirmishers, decent pilots, but not architects of doctrine. This chamber decided doctrine. Admiral Kethlor's crest rose with irritation. "We have lost cruisers testing those fields. And you'll lose a world misreading them," Elias said. He didn't raise his voice. "Give me raw feeds from skirmishes 7 and 9. No filters, no coalition smoothing. I'll prove it before your launch window." Silence, then the rustle of side glances. The launch window was 4 hours out. Virelia's orbital night would cross the combat corridor. The fleet had that much time to commit. Vraken's pupils thinned to slits. "If you are wrong, we waste our remaining hours chasing a human intuition. If I'm wrong, you still have your original plan," Elias said. "If I'm right, we win in one strike." The Crawl considered. He lived on edges. His species had learned command in extinction zones. He gestured to a robed aide. "Grant limited access. Telemetry only. 2 hours. 4, Elias said. 3, Vraken said, and that was generous. A hard, electronic chime marked agreement. A data sigil winked onto Elias's wristpad, a narrow corridor into the Coalition's sensor spine. He sat, thumbs already moving, stripping out the Coalition's smoothing algorithms and dumping raw points into his own analysis suite. "Human," the Saren tactician said softly, leaning across the table. The gills on his neck rippled with faint purple. "When you fail, the failure will be remembered." "When I fail," Elias said, "I'll remember it first." He didn't wait for a reply. He pulled his chair closer to the table's rim, where the hollow map threw gentle light over his screen, and called up Skirmish 7. The Eidolon's forward pickets had taken a pass at the mothership's flank 2 days ago. The swarm had repelled it with ease. Coalition algorithms had smoothed the data into a digestible story, shield bright, attack dim, outcome inevitable. Elias peeled the smoothing away. Telemetry devolved into a snowstorm of points: heat, neutrino flux, electromagnetic noise, rotational drift. Beautiful chaos. Human eyes liked messy truth. He marked the midline band and set the clock, running the data in real time. There. A fractional surge at T plus 184 seconds. Another at T plus 197. Not periodic, irregular, responsive. He split the band into sectors and sequenced the peaks. They rolled clockwise as if a pressure wave moved through ducts. Exhaust, not deflection. Commander Vance. The voice came from behind him, higher and steadier than the aliens. Lieutenant Rhea Solon, human, too, but in the Coalition's navy black. She had been assigned as his liaison, courtesy, chaperone, or both. You want a second set of eyes? You're late, Elias said without heat. He flicked her the data. Tell me I'm not imagining it. He leaned in, hair braided tight against her scalp, posture loose with intent. She worked fast. That's event cycle, she said after 20 seconds. Adaptive. They push waste heat around like a heartbeat. Zarkethi don't run true hearts, Elias said. They imitate them when it's efficient. Rhea nodded toward the ring. You're thinking we push a spear through during a low cycle. I'm thinking we time it, Elias said. Hit as the cycle converges. A shadow fell across them. Admiral Kethlor had left the dais and come to stand by their shoulders, silent as a knife. You two enjoy arithmetic, he said. But your numbers kill fleets if they lie. Elias didn't look up. Give me skirmish 9. Different vector. If the cycle is real, it will adapt slower there. Kethlor made a dismissive gesture. The aide pushed a new feed to Elias's pad. Elias set it running, tracking the band's glow frame by frame. The surges were there too, but phase shifted, as if the mothership's internals had braced against the previous attack vector and were slow to redistribute. He felt it click. Old pilot instincts, the feeling when 3 blips on a scope suddenly formed a pattern, and your hands moved before your mind. There's a convergence window, he said. They can't equalize across the entire band. For 30, maybe 40 seconds per cycle, 2 sectors dip below margin. And in that window? Kethlor asked. We put a lance through their ribs, Elias said. You romanticize murder, the Saren tactician muttered. You sanitize it, Elias said, still not looking up. Both lie. Rhea glanced at the chamber clock. 2 hours, 41 minutes to launch. We need authorization to pull the strike group from spying targets. We need nothing, Kethlor snapped. You need authorization. The Coalition has a plan. Elias finally looked at him. How many plans have the Zarkethi seen? How many doctrines do they catalog and counter? He tapped the glowing band. They don't fear our best. They fear our mistakes. The things we see by accident and turn into intent. Something in Kethlor's expression shifted, not belief, but the awareness of risk in both directions. He was a political predator. He could smell which way the wind might blow. You're proof, he said. More than pretty surges. Elias pulled the feeds into a crude model, not the Coalition's elegant sims, but a plain, ugly scaffold that didn't hide its assumptions. He mapped vent cycles across the band, let the convergence window slide, and threw a dumb projectile through at different timings. When he was satisfied it wasn't self-fulfilling nonsense, he flipped the model to the room's central projection. The hologram changed. The mothership expanded, the silver band subdivided into sectors. A ripple of interest, grudging. He ran the first pass. The projectile hit at random timing. The band brightened, shrugged it off. The second pass, mistimed by 5 seconds, same. The third, aligned with the lowest combined sector values. The band flickered, sagged, and a line of crimson bled inward like a knife cut. Simulation, Kethlor said. Skepticism, but quieter. Based on your raw numbers, Elias said. No smoothing. No human magic. Vraken rose from his dais and came forward, the room's attention following him like tide. He watched the 4th and 5th passes, both misaligned, both repelled, then the 6th, timed on the next convergence. Again, that blood-red line slipped through. How many ships to achieve this timing? Vraken asked. Fewer is better, Elias said. One lance, one window. Too many bodies create noise and push the cycle out of phase. A small strike shielded from their point defense until the final second. Small, the Saren echoed, scandalized. Precise, Elias said. You have an entire fleet trained to hit hard where the enemy looks strong. I'm asking you to hit quiet where they think they're hidden. The Krall Marshal stood very still, looking at the ugly little model, and Elias realized Vraken didn't care about elegance. He cared about teeth. You have until the launch bell, Vraken said at last. Refine the window. If you can deliver a timing solution with tolerances my gunners trust, I will consider a forked plan. Kethlor bristled. Marshal. I will consider, Vraken repeated, and the word was iron. The chamber began to move again, aides whispering, dignitaries recalculating their reputations. Elias killed the projection and pulled the raw feeds back to his pad. Rhea slid into the chair beside him, already calling up cross-correlation tools. You've got 90 minutes, she said. I'll take 60, Elias said. He didn't look up as he said it. He didn't need to. Every eye in the room had already moved on, to protect its pride, to hedge its bets, but for a thin band of seconds on a spinning enemy hull, attention didn't matter. Timing did. Mothership. That's a weak spot. The room froze. Then the shouting began. The war room emptied by degrees, leaving only low light and the constant, patient hum of the Eidolon systems. Outside, Virellia's curve glowed in bands of ocean blue and cloud white, serene in ignorance of the swarm accelerating toward it. Elias didn't look up from his screen. Skirmish 7, 9, and 13, Rhea said, sliding into the seat beside him. She dropped a data pad onto the table. It clinked softly. Coalition devices didn't clink unless someone had recased them in human steel. Pulled them before the Saren could lock you out. He took the pad without comment, splitting its feeds across his wrist display. Every second counted. The mothership's slow rotation meant the vent's convergence window shifted along the hull in an irregular pattern. The swarm didn't design for human habits, which was the advantage. Heat differentials are higher in 13, Rhea noted. Different vector again. They were still adapting from 9. Means we can push them harder than I thought, Elias said. His fingers ghosted over the display, cutting through noise, mapping peak and drop cycles into a rolling graph. The model's ugly on purpose. He'd learned in the academy that pretty models seduced you into believing them. Behind them, soft claws scraped crystal flooring. Admiral Kethlor's shadow loomed again, too close for comfort. I am here to watch you fail in real time, he said. Elias didn't look up. You're in the right seat for it. The Admiral's frill twitched, amusement, irritation, or both. If you are correct, why haven't the swarm armored the vents? They have, Elias said. You're looking at it. Adaptive shutters, layered membranes, enough to deflect casual strikes. But they can't armor them fully without cooking themselves alive. It's an engineering compromise. An exploit, Rhea added. Kethlor shifted his gaze to her. And you believe this? I believe numbers, she said. And I believe in betting on the thing the enemy can't change without breaking themselves. Elias scrubbed through the feeds, aligning the moment of lowest aggregate heat across all visible sectors. The pattern was holding, 36 to 42 seconds of vulnerability per cycle, staggered by the ship's slow roll. This is your window? Kethlor asked, pointing with a claw. This is the heartbeat, Elias said. You put a lance here, here, or here. He tapped 3 sectors on the projection. During the convergence, you punch straight into the reactor cluster. It cascades. Their point defense can't retarget fast enough to stop something already in motion. Assuming the cycle doesn't shift under fire, Kethlor said. It will, Elias said. The trick is to hit before it knows it needs to. Rhea's calm bead chirped, an alien tone, sharp and urgent. She thumbed it. Solon. A crackling voice answered in Tratum. Marshal orders timing trial and Simbay 2. Swarm pattern loaded. Human model to be tested. Elias was already on his feet. Good. Let's prove it before they think of another meeting to bury it in. Simbay 2 was built for coalition war games, a hemisphere of black glass, seeded with holographic emitters that painted three-dimensional battles in the air. The mothership's image towered above them, close enough that every detail of the silver band was visible. Crew from half a dozen species crowded the perimeter, murmuring. Vraken stood on the observation deck. His voice rolled like distant thunder. Commander Vance, your parameters have been loaded. Strike team, 12 interceptors, 1 lance carrier. You will have 3 passes. 3? Elias asked. 3 is generous, Vraken said. Waste them and the matter is settled. Kethlor joined the alien officers on the perimeter, arms folded. Rhea took a position at Elias's console, fingers poised over input controls. On your mark, she said. Cycle is at 71%, Elias said. Wait for the drop. The mothership rotated, silver band pulsing faintly. At 38 seconds, 2 adjacent sectors dimmed together, almost imperceptible unless you were looking for it. No, Elias said. The interceptors streaked in, blue contrails corkscrewing around defensive fire. The lance carrier emerged from behind them, nose glowing with a coiled kinetic slug. At 5 seconds from impact, the mothership's shutters began to close, too late. The slug punched through the dim sectors, and the simulation flared crimson as the reactor breach cascaded. The observation deck murmured, louder this time. Vraken's expression was unreadable stone. Second pass, Elias said. The mothership's AI adjusted, cycle shift of 4 seconds, sector rotation sped up. This time, Elias waited, let the dimming roll 3/4 around the band before giving the order. The strike slipped in again, slower, closer, still through. By the 3rd pass, the simulated AI had adapted fully, cycling shutters in an irregular pattern. Elias's eyes tracked the dimming, ignoring the feints. Vector 7, he said, almost to himself. Now. The slug slammed home again. The mothership ruptured. The Simbay lights rose. The murmurs had stopped. Silence had its own weight. Vraken stepped down from the deck. 3 of 3, he said. Not a fluke. Kethlor's frill lowered, not submission, but acceptance of math. It will take a pilot willing to fly through hell. I know a few, Elias said. You will have your forked plan, Vraken said. Half the fleet will keep to the doctrine. Your strike group will take the lance. And if we win? Elias asked. Vraken's jaw tightened. Then I will say the words that change your people's place here. They left the Simbay together, the corridors outside humming with the Eidolon's constant life. Rhea walked at Elias's side, datapad under one arm. You realize, she said, if this works, they'll pretend they saw it too. Elias shrugged. Let them. The point is winning, not credit. She smirked faintly. That's why you'll get it. Somewhere deep in the ship, the launch klaxon began its slow-building growl. 3 hours to impact. 3 hours to find pilots, tune timing, and turn a flicker in a silver band into a wound big enough to bleed a warship dry. Elias didn't slow. Timing mattered. The command council reconvened in the Eidolon's high chamber, but the air was different now, heavier, charged. The Simbay results had circulated through the fleet faster than official reports. Everyone here had seen the footage, 3 simulated strikes, 3 simulated kills. It should have been enough. It wasn't. Vraken took the central position, his scaled bulk dominating the dais. The lance strike has proven viable. We will divide forces. Half will maintain the current doctrine, pinning the mothership's guns. The strike group will execute the convergence attack. I will lead the main fleet. Admiral Kethlor will oversee the lance. The ripple of voices came immediately, not in surprise but in protest. You will dilute our strength, snapped a lean, four-eyed Telvran Commodore. The doctrine relies on saturation. The doctrine, Kethlor said dryly, relies on wasting fire against a false strength. The human's model is sound. That, more than anything, set the room vibrating. Kethlor's support wasn't respect, it was survival calculation, but it was still a concession from one of humanity's loudest skeptics. Across the table, a Saren delegate's gill slits flared with disapproval. We risk all on an untested improvisation. Elias had been silent until now, standing just behind Rhea near the outer curve of the crescent table. You've tested your plan, he said evenly. Against an enemy that's been watching you fight for years. They've adapted to you. You haven't adapted to them. The Saren's voice was all smooth venom. And you think humanity, in its infant steps among the stars, can teach us adaptation? Elias met the alien's unblinking eyes. I think desperation is a better teacher than comfort. The murmur swelled again, the alien phrase for insult weaving through multiple languages. Vraken cut them off with a single clawed gesture. Enough. We waste time in vanity. The swarm is 3 hours from orbital weapons range. Decide now. A small, fox-faced trail admiral flicked her tail in agitation. If the lance fails, the mothership will remain at full strength to tear through our main fleet. And if it succeeds, Kethlor countered, their center collapses and the swarm loses cohesion. Vraken's eyes scanned the chamber, weighing each faction. Those willing to commit to the lance strike, mark your assent. Half the table's consoles lit in amber, not majority, but enough to split the fleet without breaking it. The dissenters' lights burned cold blue. So be it, Vraken rumbled. The Eidolon will hold the center. Admiral Kethlor's force will punch the heart. Commander Vance, your timing solution will be uploaded to the Lance Carrier's fire control core. Elias nodded once. He understood the subtext. If this failed, the blue-lit half of the table would use his name as shorthand for catastrophe. The council dissolved into movement, aides relaying orders, tacticians pushing deployment maps, comms officers threading signals through the fleet. Elias caught Rhea's arm before she followed. They're split, he said quietly. They've always been split, she replied. You just gave them a new fault line. The Eidolon's hangar was a cathedral of steel and light. Strike craft sat in neat rows on magnetic rails, crews swarming over them in pre-launch rituals. The Lance Carrier, Iron Hand, waited at the far end, its elongated hull bristling with shielding arrays and the single forward-board lance cannon that gave it its name. Kethlor met Elias at the boarding ramp. You'll be on my bridge, he said without preamble. You timed the shot. I'll keep the ship alive long enough to take it. Elias nodded. You'll need interceptors to cover the approach. I'll take 4 squadrons, Kethlor said. No more. Any larger and we trip their early cast defenses. Rhea stepped up beside them. I want to fly escort, she said. Kethlor gave her a long, unreadable look. You think this is some human honor play? I think you need a pilot who's seen this window from the inside, Rhea said. And I think your people are still calibrating to the idea that it exists. For a heartbeat, Elias thought the Admiral would refuse. Then Kethlor's frill flattened in something like acceptance. 1 interceptor. Fly smart, human. They launched under blackout protocols. No formation lights, comms tight-beamed. The fleet split cleanly, Vraken's warships holding the center line like a wall of steel, Kethlor's smaller force curving wide, looping under the planet's limb toward the mothership's vented flank. From the Iron Hand's bridge, the swarm was a living nebula, glints of chitin and alloy swirling in ordered chaos. The mothership loomed behind it all, rotation slow but steady, the silver band glimmering like a crown. Cycle at 63%, Elias said, eyes on the timing graph he'd built from live telemetry. Kethlor's voice was calm over the bridge calm. Interceptors, clear me a path. Rhea's acknowledgement was crisp, almost casual. Copy. Cutting in now. Through the forward viewport, Elias watched her fighter skim along the Iron Hand's shield curve before darting ahead, flanking 2 other escorts. They cut into the swarm's picket line, blue lance fire carving space through the chaos. Cycle at 82, Elias called. Hold speed. The mothership's shutters began their subtle ripple, venting invisible heat into the void. The band dimmed in sectors, not enough for the untrained eye to notice, but Elias could see it like a heartbeat. "Convergence in 45 seconds," he said. Kethlor's claws tightened on the command rail. "All power to forward shields. Bring us to strike Vector 7. On the display, the band's dim sectors were rolling toward alignment. If the iron hand reached its firing point too early, the cycle would miss. Too late, and the shutters would close. 30 seconds, Elias said. The swarm reacted, a surge of interceptors from the mothership's dorsal hangars, breaking into attack spirals. Ria's voice cut in. "We've got company." Kethlor barked orders. The Iron Hand's escorts flared in bright arcs, meeting the interceptors head-on. The bridge shuddered as glancing fire glanced off their shields. Elias barely noticed. The graph was peaking. 15 seconds. Hold. Hold. The silver band flared faintly, then 3 sectors dipped together, their glow falling into the precise trough he mapped. "No," Elias said. Kethlor gave the fire order without hesitation. The Iron Hand's lance cannon roared, a spear of condensed mass screaming through vacuum. It struck the dimmed sector's dead center. The shutters folded like paper. On the display, crimson bled across the mothership's midsection. Internal detonations pulsed outward. The swarm's interceptors faltered mid-attack, their coordination breaking like glass. Elias didn't smile. Window confirmed. The Iron Hand's bridge lights dimmed as the lance's recoil bled through her frame. On the main display, the Zarkethi mothership's midline ruptured, heat flaring in colors no sensor smoothing could hide. The damage rippled outward, but the enemy didn't break. "There's shifting vent cycles," Elias said, eyes locked on the live feed. "They've isolated the breach. We hurt them, but the heart's still beating." "Then we hit it again," Kethlor growled. "Bring us around." Alarms keened. The swarm had adapted, a wedge of heavy interceptors cutting through the chaos, vectoring straight for the Iron Hand. Their hulls shimmered with defensive fields tuned for kinetic interception. "Shields forward!" Kethlor snapped. "Escorts, intercept!" Through the viewport, Ria's fighter broke formation, spiraling into the swarm's lead element. Her cannon fire stitched glowing lines across their shields, forcing them to scatter. "Buy you 30 seconds, she said. "That's all I need," Elias replied, already recalculating the mothership's altered vent pattern. The breach had forced them to reroute heat in uneven bursts. Their cycle was no longer smooth. That meant unpredictability, which meant opportunity. "Kethlor," Elias said, "next convergence isn't along the original vector. It's migrating here." He pointed at a sector just off the first breach. "Shorter window, maybe 20 seconds. But if we hit it, it cascades into the first," Kethlor finished. The Iron Hand banked hard, inertial dampers groaning as the massive carrier swung toward the new firing line. Swarm frigates moved to intercept, spewing streams of glowing munitions. "Cycle at 70%, Elias called. "Hold speed. We can't spook them early." The Iron Hand's escorts cut a swath through the frigates, but the swarm's numbers were endless. 2 interceptors were shredded in a blossom of light. Ria's voice came through, tight but steady. "We've got more on your starboard. You won't make the line unless we punch a hole." "Do it," Kethlor ordered. Ria and the surviving escorts dove headlong into the enemy wedge. On the tactical plot, their IFF tags danced through hostile fire, taking shots that should have been lethal. The wedge fractured just enough for the Iron Hand to slide through. Elias's timing graph spiked. 15 seconds. Hold, hold. The mothership's shutters stuttered. The breach had thrown their thermal control into chaos. 3 sectors dimmed at once, exactly where he'd predicted. "Now!" The second lance shot tore through the band, ripping open a wound that met the first. The 2 breaches linked in a chain reaction. Reactor containment shattered. On every display, the mothership bloomed in a silent, expanding halo of light and debris. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Elias didn't relax. "We're not done. Their swarm AI's going to go autonomous, no more central control, just pure predator instinct." As if on cue, the swarm ship scattered into erratic, lethal patterns, targeting anything that moved. Without the mothership's coordination, they were unpredictable, but still deadly. Vraken's voice thundered across the fleet-wide channel. Main fleet, advance! Press them while they flail! The Eidolon's guns opened up in the distance, lancing through the broken swarm. Elias watched the tactical feed as coalition ships poured through the gap, hammering the enemy line. The Iron Hand took another hit, shields flaring, alarms screaming. Status? Kethlor barked. Forward shields at 21%, an officer replied. Elias leaned over the console. Get us into the Eidolon's shadow. Let the main fleet draw fire while we recharge. Kethlor gave the order without hesitation. The Iron Hand slipped under the massive flagship's cover, her systems gulping power from emergency reserves. On the outer edge of the plot, Rhea's fighter limped back toward formation, one wing half-charred. Still flying, she said, voice calm despite the damage. And you owe me for saving your firing line twice. You can send the invoice after we survive, Elias said. The swarm began to collapse, pockets of resistance crushed between coalition pincers. Without their command node, their advantage had evaporated into chaos. The kill counts rolled in, alien crews shouting victory cries in a dozen tongues. Kethlor's frill rose in satisfaction. You were right, human. They feared what we might see. Elias allowed himself a thin smile. Now they know we're looking. The comms chatter was shifting from target calls to status reports, the subtle sign that the battle's momentum had fully turned. But the adrenaline in the Iron Hand's bridge stayed sharp. They'd pulled it off, twice, against an enemy no one thought could be breached. The war wasn't over. But this fight was theirs. The battle's roar faded slowly, like a storm receding over the horizon. Debris fields glittered against the black, drifting in slow arcs around Virellia. The swarm was gone, not destroyed in entirety, but broken badly enough to scatter into retreat. The Iron Hand moved at reduced thrust, her hull scorched, shields drained to almost nothing. The lance barrel glowed faintly, still bleeding residual heat into the cold void. On the bridge, Kethlor gave the final disengage order. Strike group, stand down. Regroup with the main fleet. His voice had lost none of its edge, but the weight behind it was different, not suspicion, but a grudging acknowledgement. Elias leaned against the console, watching the tactical display as the swarm's remnants fled beyond pursuit range. He had expected relief. Instead, there was only the echo of concentration, the mental reflex that kept running scenarios long after the fight was over. Rhea's voice came from the side comms channel. Landing in Bay 3. And before you ask, yeah, I'm in one piece. The interceptor's not. You earned a new one, Elias said. I earned two, she countered, cutting the line with a click. The Eidolon's War Council chamber was quieter than it had been at the start of the day. The survivors filled the crescent table. Several chairs were empty, their former occupants having gone down with their ships. Vraken presided without ceremony. The Zarkethi mothership is destroyed. Their fleet routed. Virellia remains under our protection. Casualty reports will follow. He paused, letting the silence acknowledge the cost. Then, it is my judgment that the convergence strike was decisive. Credit to Admiral Kethlor, to the Iron Hand's crew, and to Commander Elias Vance, human strategist. The words landed like a stone in still water. Some faces tightened, others allowed the faintest nod. Vraken turned to Elias. You saw what others did not. You argued it, proved it, and executed it under fire. The coalition remembers those who shift the tide. Elias inclined his head. The tide shifted because every ship in the plan played its part. The lance doesn't hit if the escorts don't hold the line. It was the right answer politically. He knew it, but it was also true. Kethlor's frill twitched. Perhaps there is some use in human instincts, after all. A low ripple of alien amusement moved through the chamber. Hours later, the Iron Hand drifted in high orbit over Virellia, her repairs just beginning. Elias stood alone in the observation deck, a curved wall of crystal, the planet's oceans and cloud bands turning slowly below. The room was quiet, save for the distant hum of power conduits. In that stillness, the adrenaline finally drained, leaving only the knowledge of what had almost happened. One miscalculation in timing, one shutter cycle missed, and Virellia would have burned. He thought of the looks in the war room when he first interrupted, the disbelief, the irritation, the unspoken "you don't belong here." That would never fully vanish. But today, he had given them something they couldn't ignore. Ria's reflection appeared in the crystal beside him, a fresh bandage along her jaw. "Fleet's talking," she said. "Some are saying the swarm will think twice before tangling with humans now." "Maybe," Elias said. "Or maybe they'll just come up with something new. Then we'll see it first," she said. They stood there a while longer, watching Virellia's sun edge over the horizon, spilling gold across the oceans. Elias finally spoke, almost to himself. "We're new here. But we see things they don't." The end.